Hey everybody, what's up? It's Colin583 here again. Today what we're going to be doing is installing this Samsung 860 EVO 500GB SSD into this 2010 MacBook Pro for my friend. So as I just mentioned, this is a friend's computer and they use it mainly for doing schoolwork and also for editing photos with Photoshop and things like that. But recently this thing has gotten so slow to the point where it takes minutes to open programs. I suggested that I could very easily put in an SSD, and seeing as though it was only 60 bucks, they decided to go for it. But before I do anything, I'm going to power this thing up so you guys can see just how slow it is. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. So 2.5 minutes later, it finally booted up to the login screen. I'm not going to go any further because I don't know the password, so let's throw in this SSD. So I did this upgrade on my MacBook a year or two ago, and if I remember correctly, you don't need that many tools at all, which is surprising considering it's an Apple. The only tool I really used in mine was a small Phillips head screwdriver. I'm using the one from iFixit here, so why don't we go ahead and remove all the screws. If you're going to work on any computer, especially laptops where there's many screws of different sizes and lengths and things, I highly recommend getting a tray like the one you see here, with many like compartments or just a way to separate the screws. That way you know which ones go where and what different types of screws there are. This one came included with the iFixit kit. So now I'm going to go ahead and lift the bottom cover off of this MacBook. And you can see a couple things right away. One is that the hard drive is very easily accessible and only held in by 4 screws. And the other is that it's very dusty inside. And anytime you take apart a computer, especially a laptop, I would recommend blowing air in back through the fan and blow out all the dust in. So you can see the hard drive is right here, held in simply by 4 Phillips head screws and 2 brackets. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo these 4 screws. And that lifts out, and then there's 2 over here also. And that should lift out also. And then you can lift the hard drive out, just like that, and disconnect its cable. So I've gone ahead and removed the hard drive here. The 2 screws on the one bracket come out, lifts out, and then it hinges out of the other 2 holes. This hard drive is actually held in by 4 very special screws, and they fit in some rubber grommets that are in those brackets. And they're actually Torx T6 screws. Now the iFixit kit I'm using has a Torx T6 driver, which I'm using here to unscrew the screws from the hard drive. I have gotten away in the past with using a very small flathead and jamming it in there, but that's not advisable because you can easily strip out the star-shaped head on the screw there. But once I remove these screws, we can go ahead and put them into the SSD and get the SSD installed. So here's our new fancy 860 EVO Samsung SSD, and what I'm going to do here is put in the 4 screws I just took out, like so. So after tightening up all 4 screws on the SSD with the screwdriver, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the SATA cable again, just very carefully because it's a ribbon cable and it can easily tear. Then you kind of hinge the SSD back in after you make sure the ribbon cable's all the way plugged in, like I didn't. It hinges into the far 2, and then the other bracket sits on top of the 2 screws that are closer to you, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten down all 4 of those screws. It is now time for reassembly. Alright, so I've successfully made my Mac OS Mojave boot USB, and I'm just going to plug it in over here and turn it on, and we're going to see if we can access the boot menu. There we go. Should get a mouse. We'll click on this one, maybe. There we go. And it seems that I've made an error. Okay, so I'm going to sort this out and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I've finally been able to make a boot USB that actually works. Apparently it didn't want to install macOS Mojave, but El Capitan seems to work. I ran into many issues with trying to make a USB drive. It turned out that the disk drive I downloaded was corrupted and my flash drive had issues at the same time. So now that I've got that all sorted out, we're going to go ahead and install macOS El Capitan. So we're finally up to the part where I get to finish setting up this MacBook. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll see you guys when I'm all done. So I just finished the setup, and this Mac's just about ready to go.
Alright, so here's the comparison. I'm going to hit the power button in 3, 2, 1, go. Look at how quick that thing's booting up.
That was lightning fast compared to before. We went from over 2.5 minutes to just under 16 seconds. So I'm going to call this project a huge success. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. If you like my content so far, please consider subscribing. I'm going to be releasing a lot more content in the future and other topics than just computers, too. So, anyways, I'll see you in the next one.